Today, we're going to talk about the Automation Studio within Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and I have a couple of hands-on exercises that we can go through. For those of you who had signed up in advance before last Friday, we were able to put some training materials into your Salesforce Marketing Cloud account, and I sent you a PDF with some training exercises. If you signed up later than that, so you don't have those materials, there is a handouts tab where you can download the PDF that I sent around via email if you want to have that handy while we're going through things. And even if you didn't get the training materials in your account, you should be able to follow along fairly well. You'll just want to be careful if you're doing the things that I'm walking through, that if you're selecting a list to send to, that it's a test list and not a real list, so you don't accidentally send a fake email out to real contacts. Okay, so let's hop into what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction about the Automation Studio and review some ways that Salesforce Marketing Cloud works around data extensions and data filters. I know that's something that a lot of us don't use every day, so I want to do a quick review of that because it kind of applies to things that you can do within the Automation Studio. And then I want to do a couple of hands-on exercises to help you understand the things that you can do in the Automation Studio, and to we'll set up a sort of mini email campaign in the Automation Studio so you can run a little mini campaign and see how it works. And then we'll have some time for questions. All right, so the Automation Studio, before we hop onto the live site, just to let you know, it's a powerful tool behind Salesforce Marketing Cloud that really lets you automate any kind of email-related tasks that are repetitive. So some of the most common ways that companies use it is to set up automated email campaigns, where there might be a drip campaign where you have several messages around something that you want to make people aware of. In the commercial world, it might be special sales. In our world, in public media, frequently it may be membership campaigns, but it may be other things. It may be special events that you want to make sure that your contacts are aware of. It might be sort of welcome campaigns to new contacts. If you get new contacts within from a special event and you want to send a series of emails about what's your station all about, there's lots that you could do. Before you should even be thinking of opening up the Automation Studio inside of Salesforce Marketing Cloud, though, you really need to do some planning. So probably what you want to do is have a pen and paper, have a whiteboard with your team, and figure out what is it that you're trying to do. Is this a campaign? What is the campaign? Who are you trying to reach? How are you going to identify those people? What is it that you want to say? When do you want to say it? How many messages do you want to have? How often do you want them to go out? What time period in between messages do you want it to have? So you really need to kind of do your homework first to map out what your plan is for using the automation. And there's lots of things that you can do with automation. So it doesn't have to be a full-blown email campaign. It could just be just about any task that you do inside Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So it could be something as simple as refreshing a segment. If you have a filter set up to create a list segment and you want to set up an automation to make sure that the filter is rerun to update that list on a regular basis, you can do that. Maybe you have a welcome series set up for new contacts, or maybe you have a specific sequence of emails that you send out every month around monthly renewals, and you can do the homework and do the prep work to get it set up in the system once, and then every month you can just basically set it to go without having to redo the work every single time. But kind of the big question behind all of these things when you're starting to plot out what it is that you want to do is kind of the million-dollar question, which is, how good is your data? So if you want to do a campaign to new contacts, you need to have confidence that you can identify who your new contacts are. So maybe that's by uploading a new list out of your database, because you have a way in your database to tell that, or maybe it's uh, uh, filtering a list that you already have. But you want to think about how fresh is your data, how is it updated, where is it coming from, to make sure that you're confident that once you identify who you want to send a message to, that you're identifying them well and in a way that is fresh. But we'll talk about all that in a minute. But I just want to set that as background a little bit. So once you have a plan, you know what you want to do, you know what the messages are that you want to say, then you have to create all your assets. So if there's anything that you need to do, like pulling contact reports out of your database to get the contacts you need, or to get information about your existing contacts that you want to add to your list, you'd have to do that first. For a campaign that is sending a series of emails out to people, you want to build those emails and test them, make sure that they look good, so they're in a place where they're ready to go when you're ready for them to go. And then if you want to do any kind of filtering within the process, you need to set up what the system calls a filter activity, and I'm going to dive into a little bit into that bit so you can know what I'm talking about. So this is kind of a sample of what an automated campaign might look like from Salesforce Marketing Cloud's point of view, where maybe you refresh a filter on your list, send an email to that list, and you wait a certain amount of time. You refilter the list to make sure that it's the most up-to-date contacts again. Maybe you read out certain contacts in that refiltering of your list, and then you send the second message. To get more specific, maybe you're sending out an email campaign to your lapsed donors. So the first thing that you do is you update your list, or you filter your list to get the most recent list of who are your lapsed donors. Then you send them the first email that's, we miss you, please renew your pledge, right? And then you wait a certain amount of time to give them a chance to give to that email, and then maybe you refilter the list to see who's still a lapsed member. Maybe that will weed out people who had given, or maybe you could also filter the list to see who didn't click on the donation link in the first email. So you don't want to bother the people who already clicked through to your membership page, but you want to sort of nudge again the people who haven't clicked through to your membership page. And then you want to send them a second email that, we know we really miss you, please give. So this is what your sort of outline and sketch of an automation might look like before you set it up inside of Salesforce Marketing Cloud. There are lots of steps to an automation. The ones that we're going to focus on, there are lots of possible steps, I should say, to an automation. The ones that we're going to focus on today are the filter step. If you want to use that step, what you're going to have to do is do some prep work and create what the system calls a filter activity. I'm going to dive into that in just a second. There's a send an email step, and the prep work that you need to do ahead of time in order to enable that step is have emails built and ready to go in the system. And then there's a wait step, where all you need to do is predefine how long of a wait you need to have between steps. All right, so before we get into the exercises and the demo, I want to do a little bit of review about data extensions and how they work, and working with data extensions. Oh, my animation isn't working. There we go. So a data extension is really your email list. So that is, if you think about a data table or an Excel spreadsheet where you have a list that has all your emails on it, but then you may have any number of other fields on that list. So in this example, you might have first name and last name and whether or not they're a member. I know it doesn't really make sense that Amanda's not a member even though she just gave, but that's okay. Then if what I want to do is filter that list and create a sub list, I need to identify which field on my list has information in it that I can use to filter the list down to a sub list. So maybe I want to filter the list down to just see who are people who aren't members yet. And in this example, I have a field that says yes or no, is this person a member? So I can tell the system I can create a data filter in the system to tell it to go look in that member field and look for any contacts who have no in the member field, and create a sublist from those people. So I could, if I wanted to, just send a message to people who aren't members, or I could do the opposite. I could look at the list, tell the system to filter just to people who are members, and tell the system to send an email just to those people, depending on what the message is. So when you use a filter to create a sublist, that's what Salesforce Marketing Cloud calls a filter data extension. Now, if you want to do this as a step inside of inside of an automation where emails are getting sent out automatically, you need to create what Salesforce Marketing Cloud calls a filter activity. And this is basically giving Salesforce Marketing Cloud the instructions about when you get to the step in an automation, what data filter should Salesforce Marketing Cloud look for, and which list should it apply it to, and when it creates a new sublist, where should it save that information? So let's hop into our first exercise. What I want to walk everybody through is creating a filter activity. If you did sign up in advance, we made sure that everybody has saved inside of your data extensions area. There should be a training materials folder that has a test list on it. And the contacts on the test list are myself, our intern Amanda, and anyone from your station who is signed up for this particular training. So it should be safe to send to, and we can practice filtering it as well. So I'm going to hop into Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So hopefully this is a review for everyone. I know when we transitioned everyone onto Salesforce Marketing Cloud, we did talk a little bit about data filters. But what I'm going to do first, and you can follow along with me if you're inside Salesforce Marketing Cloud, is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a filter in the system. Because if I want to put a filter activity inside an automation, I first have to have a filter that I can point to. So this is in the email section. So if you're in your Salesforce Marketing Cloud dashboard, and then you go into email, and then you go into the subscribers menu, and you go into data extensions. This area should look familiar. It's where all of your lists should be saved. You should have a training materials folder, and you should have, I have a lot of lists here, but you should have a training list in here. To create a data filter, click on the data filters folder, which is down here, and then click create. And for the NPR digital services station accounts, everything is in a data extension. So if you want to create a data filter, you always select data extension, and then you say OK. And then it's going to ask you which of your lists you're going to want to filter. So this is the same list of data extensions that was over here before this overlay came up. So I just go down to navigate down to the list that I want to filter. In this case, I'm going to go to my training materials folder. That should be in your one-time list folder, and it shouldn't have too many names on it. It shouldn't have maybe 3, maybe 4 names on it. You click on training list. I'm telling the system this is the list that I do want to filter, and I click OK. And what the system is going to do is it's going to look at that list and see what fields it has, and those fields are over here. In this example, what I want to do is I want to be able to filter down so I can send a message to people who are not members. I'm going to pretend that this is my newsletter subscription list, and I have a member field on it that I keep updated so I can know who on my newsletter list is a member and who isn't. And I want to send a special message. I want to be able to send a special message to people who are subscribed to this particular list but are not members. So to do that, I need to look in that member field. So this is the fields on the list. I'm going to click on the one I want. I'm going to drag it over. And this dropdown contains different parameters that you can use to look in the different fields and filter the list. In this case, I'm going to use contains, and I'm going to say no. So what this is doing is basically setting up the instructions for Salesforce Marketing Cloud that for this filter, go find that member field and then go find anybody who has no within that member field. When I'm done, I'm going to go up here in the top right and I'm going to click the Save button. And then I'm going to give it a name. It's going to save it in my data filters folder. This one I'm going to call training list, non-members. So I know what this is. It's my non-members filter. Now, all that's happening when I save a filter is literally I'm just saving those instructions. It's not creating a list. I don't know by looking at this how many people in my list this instruction applies to, but it's simply saving those instructions so that I can apply this rule to the list to filter it down anytime that I want to. Now, if I know that I'm going to want to use this filter within an automation where I'm going to want to have a step where I want to run a filter to make sure I'm getting the most up-to-date information on who the non-members are on my newsletter list. That's when I need to go over into the Automation Studio area and create what's called a filter activity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of the email section. I'm going to click on this cloud up in the top left, and it's going to give this wider Salesforce Marketing Cloud menu. And then I'm going to go way over here into the Journey Builder item, and I'm going to click on Automation Studio. So if you've only been inside the email section, it's a whole new world in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So from here, I'm going to go into the Activities section right here. And then I'm going to create an activity. Now you can see there's many different things that you could create as activities. I'm not going to get into all of them on this call. Some of them are very advanced. I want to just introduce everybody to the ideas of the kinds of things that you can do in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. For now, we're going to click on Filter to set up our filter activity so that we can add the data filter that we had to an email. So I click on Filter, and then I'm going to click Next. And what it's doing is it's loading the data filters that I have in my data filters folder where we just were in the email section. I'm going to put in a name here. So this is so that I know what this filter activity is designed to do. You have to give it a name. The external key field, I recommend leaving it blank. It needs to be a unique ID for this particular filter activity record in the system. If you leave it blank, the system will just pre-fill it in and you won't have to worry about trying to come up with unique IDs all the time. The description is also optional, but if you find yourself down the road that you might be creating a lot of these, you may want a description to be really clear about what this particular filter activity is for and all about. So I gave it a name, and now I'm going to find the filter that I just did. So I'm going to find my non-members data filter that I just set up. I'm going to click Next. And now this screen where it's asking me for a name again, this is about naming the new filtered data extension that the system's going to create when it does this step. So what happens if I put a filter activity inside an automation, the system looks at the rules of the data filter, that's inside the filter activity, runs that filter on my list, and then creates a new filtered data extension that are just those names that came out when it ran the filter. So it's basically creating a new sublist for me. And what I'm putting in here is the name of that sublist. The same rule applies for the external key, and you can skip the description or add it in if you want to be clear, to give yourself notes later on what this sublist is all about. So I click next, and I'm going to review the things I entered. And I'm going to click finish. And that gives me a filter that I can make use of later. It will be in the filters folder over here if you're following along with me and going along with me. So what we can do with the Automation Studios, I'm going to click on the overview here, is this is where we can build out all of our automations and different stuff. Let me flip back into the PowerPoint again. Before we jump into our second exercise, which is to create an automated membership campaign, let's kind of set the scene of what we're talking about again. So as we were just talking about, run a campaign to encourage newsletter subscribers who are not members to make a donation. And we're assuming that we've already done some of our homework to get ready for setting up the automation. So we've confirmed that we have the correct data in our data extension. We know that we can identify from on our list who's a member and who's not a member. We've confirmed what data filters we need, and we have those in place, and we have a filter activity in place that we can at our disposal too if we want to use that. And we're also going to pretend that we already set up emails within the system that we've tested them, they look good, the messaging is ready to go, and they're saved in the My Email section and handy and ready for us to plug into our automation. Now, one warning for everyone as you're getting ready to start setting up your own automations. The Automation Studio is right now not able to connect to the new Content Builder interface, where Salesforce Marketing Cloud's new nicer interface for building emails. So if you want to use an email inside an automation, you need to build it in the classic Content Builder. From what I've seen coming from Salesforce is they absolutely plan to make Content Builders emails available within the Automation Studio, but they haven't quoted any dates on when it's going to be available, so I don't know. I would imagine as more and more Salesforce clients are moving into the Content Builder, they're getting this question a lot as far as when are we going to be, now that we're building our emails in the new interface, when can we add them to automations? But I want to give you that upfront warning, so if you're getting all ready to create an automation, you do want to build your emails within the classic content interface. If you signed up in advance, we did put in a couple, they're very dummy looking emails inside a training materials folder inside your classic content, your classic email editor interface. So you have a couple test emails that you can work with. You can use our test emails, or you can use any test emails if you have emails in classic content. It doesn't really matter for this exercise. So for this exercise, we want to send this email campaign. We've done a lot of the homework. We have some emails built. We know what we want to do. And we are ready to jump into the Automation Studio and set up the automation to give it a test. So let's go do that. So I'm in the Automation Studio. And again, if you were catching up and you didn't see how to get to it, if you go into that cloud up in the top left, you go into the Journey Builder area, and you go into the Automation Studio. This will land you here. For your accounts, this probably looks blank. I've been doing some tests on our demo accounts. But this is your Automation Studio dashboard, where you can see what automations you have. If there are automations in progress, you can see where they are within their progress and how they're doing. To create a new automation, come up here into the create automation and you can click on that. And what we're going to do is a scheduled automation. So a triggered automation has to do with, it is possible to FTP a data extension file to an FTP folder and set things up so that becomes a trigger that tells the system to set off an automation. That's kind of a more advanced use, and we'll probably have an advanced training a little down the line. If you're really eager to learn more about that, reach out to me and I can talk to you about that a little bit more. But what we're going to focus on today is a scheduled automation. That is where you set up a series of steps and then you either schedule it to automatically start at a certain date and time, or else you manually trigger it to start at that date and time that you're ready. So I'm going to click on scheduled and then I'm going to click OK. And what I get here is this interface where I can map out my workflow of what steps I want added in the automation. So what we want to do is we want to send an email to our contacts who are not members. We want to wait a certain amount of time. We want to refilter our list to make sure we have the most fresh information about non-members, and then we want to send a second email. So over here on the left, these are all the various activities that could be added into an automation. What I'm going to drag over is first I'm going to drag over send an email. So that's the first step. I want to send my first email out to people who are members. And then I'm going to drag the wait step, which is the one at the bottom, because after that one goes out, I want to give it some time, give people a chance to read the email, hopefully click the donation link and give. So I'm going to wait. Then I want to filter the list to make sure I have the freshest data I possibly can. And then I'm going to send my second appeal. So as you can see, you could add lots of steps. So if you had a whole series of emails that was more than 2, you could add a whole series of steps to the process here. Once you have all of the steps that you think you want, my recommendation is to go ahead and save it. The Automation Studio does not automatically save nicely like the Content Builder area does. So when you're building out an automation, you do need to take the time to save it. Give it a name, so when you see your list of various automations that you have, you'll know what it is. I'm going to call it my new member campaign. I'm going to give it a description, campaign to non-members on my newsletter list. And then I'm just going to save it. So it's just going to save it where it is, what steps I want. So if I have to go away and come back the next day to finish getting things set up, I know that what I've done so far is saved. So I have the steps in place, but I still need to tell the system configure each of the steps so it knows which email to send, which list to filter, and all of those things. You'll notice that since I don't have anything configured, right up here there's this run once button, but it's totally grayed out. I can't do anything with it. That's because it doesn't know what to do yet. It just knows what steps I want to do, but it doesn't know what it should do at the various steps. So each of the steps has a button to configure it at the bottom. To configure the email, I click on the configure button. And as we go through this, the steps in the configuring an email are probably going to seem pretty familiar to you, because it's very similar to the steps that you take when you're going through the send process to send out the email. You're just putting the information about the send in advance so that when Salesforce gets to the step in the automation, it knows what those settings need to be, which email it's supposed to send, and who it's supposed to send it to. So over here, I'm going to navigate to the email that I want to send it. So I'm in my training folder, and I'm going to send my first training email. Then what it lists over here is it gives you the subject line, so you can change it if you want to, and the pre-header if you want to change it too. The other thing that is over here is the sender profile settings. So if you have multiple from names set up in your account in various sender profiles, you can select which one is most appropriate for this particular email that you're sending out. You can set that here, and then you click next. Next is selecting what list it's going to. And you can navigate to a filter or a data extension. And in this case, I'm going to go to my training materials and send it to my test list. And what you can do is there's an exclusions area too. If you wanted to select a list where you wanted to make sure that nobody on this list is included, you could do that in the exclusions area. You just navigate to the list that you want it to go to. And then when you have the list settings that you want, you click next. And then this is kind of like the final preview before you send. It will show you a preview of the email, what the subject line is, what the from line is, and who it's going to. If that looks all right, then you click finish. This isn't sending the email. It's just you have the settings complete so that the system can send the email when it gets to that step. The next step in the process is a wait step. So this is choose is the setting parameter, and then you define how long you want it to wait. For a real membership campaign, you probably wait a few days or a week or something like that. There's lots of time frames that you can set it to. You have minutes, hours, days, weeks. If you're doing this with me right now, I'm going to send it to minutes because then I can run it and see it happening. So I'm going to set it to 5 minutes instead of maybe 5 days. You could also set it to a specific time. Maybe if you know that you want to start it on a Monday and then you want the system to wait until noon on Wednesday until it does the next step, you could do a specific time if you wanted to. But for this test, I'm just going to do a duration of 5 minutes. Say okay. Then the filter step is I want to refilter the list, and I'm going to go to the filter that I just created, the filter activity that I just created. And what you see here in the filters folder, that's what we created up here in the activities section. So you might have a whole lot of data filters in your account, but if you're following along with me and working as I went, you probably only have one filter activity set up in your filter activities folder. But you select the one that you want and you click done. And then for the final email, I'll do this more quickly now. I'm going to go into my training folder. I'm going to do my second email that I've set up in advance. I'm going to select my sender profile that I want with it. And I'm going to go into my data extensions. And send it to that list I want to send it to. And it all looks good. And I'm going to say that I'm done. So now that I've configured every step, I'm going to save it again to commit all the steps that I ran. And now you'll see that that run once button is it's not grayed out anymore, so I can click on it. At this point, I'm free to run this particular automation. If it's something that I want to schedule to start at a specific date and time, there's the schedule tab, and then I can pick a specific date and time for this automation to start. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just run it once. I'm going to click it, and it is setting it to go. So it's going to go from step to step to step, and it should move pretty quickly. So here's my new member campaign. from the dashboard again. And from the dashboard, I could jump into running it once too, if I was ready to have it go. And since I started it to run, what's happening now when I go into it is it's going to be updating where it is in the process. So we have the recent activity here. It's showing me, this one's highlighted. It did the first step. It's in the process of sending this test email right now. Then when it gets to the wait step, this will be highlighted, and as it goes down the line, it will be doing that. So I'm going to pause and see if we have any questions that have come in from all of that. So while I'm waiting for questions, I invite you all to play around with the Automation Studio a little bit on your own. We are going to have, I'm going to hold kind of an open Q&A call. So I know it's hard when you're watching the presentation to always know what to ask. So when you actually try it for yourself that you run into questions about your specific situations. So if you do try it out between now and then, it's 2 weeks from tomorrow, since 1 week from tomorrow. Hopefully most of us will be enjoying the Thanksgiving holiday and not working. I set it for the following week, December 1st at 2 o'clock Eastern time. So I will be emailing everybody who joined this training the connection details. We'll do a go-to-meeting that has an open line so we can just talk through things that come up. If you've tried it out between then and now. And I also want to point you to our support site at nprsupport.desk.com. We are building out the Salesforce Marketing Cloud help section, so there are some help articles there. And then that's also how you can submit a ticket to us. So if you're having trouble either figuring out Automation Studio or any problems with Salesforce Marketing Cloud, then you can contact us there. No questions. All right, so I hope that everyone's going to have some fun playing with Automation Studio. And I would take the time to think about what are things that you do over and over again. What are the time drains that are related to emails? And then you can start thinking about how you might set some of those things up as an automation. Do you do renewal emails where you set up a bunch of different emails in different scenarios, and are there at least some pieces of that you can set up as an automation? Or even something as simple as refreshing lists, setting up as an automation so you don't have to remember to always do that. That might be helpful. If you have an idea of something that you want to do and you want to bounce it off me as far as could this be done as an automation? How would I go about doing that? I'm happy to set up time to talk with anybody. It doesn't look like any questions have come in yet, so I will sign off now. Please feel free to join me on the 1st, and we can talk some more about automation. And in the meantime, have fun, and I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. Thanks, everybody.